Not from it. Just 2 months. I built my own 2 rooms at Makasi, but I worked 20 years without buying even a single plot. Now I have my own premises. So I rely myself on the gold more than cocoa.
He appears unperturbed, cutting down his cocoa trees.
Government can never stop Galamsey in this Ghana at all. I have the gold, I have plenty money in my pocket, so I don't mind cocoa. Look, I'm now cutting it off. You see, it is my own bonafide property. Nobody can stop me to stop cutting my own cocoa tree. Are you planting for me? Planting for you food and job? Am I involved?
The 62-year-old is among many farmers who have sold their cocoa farms to these miners.
Illegal mining continues to thrive in some cocoa growing areas due to what many consider to be lack of enforcement. Here at Konsu, it is common to see these miners digging and scavenging for gold when you walk through several cocoa farms.
Between 2019 and 2020, around 19,000 to 20,000 hectares of cocoa farms across the country were destroyed by illegal miners, according to a recent Cocoa Board report. Gold miners targeted major cocoa growing towns in Ashanti, Eastern, Western, and Western North regions. Eric Adekusi, a miner, explains the means they use to get the farmland from the farmers.
Every cocoa farm we work on is being sold by the owner. We don't use force to take anyone's farmland. We just do everything possible to convince the owner to sell the farmland by giving him more money if we realize there is gold there. We sometimes go the extra mile to get the land by diverting a water body to destroy the farm.
This is 1 acre, 10,000. Let's talk about 1 acre, 50,000. Now I have brown now. Now want to be still 1 year. Yet look like a year so then you before cocoa. Never cocoa you. Now I make a baker, a baker, walk around, want to be not here for more. The bears of Begisca, what the name.
According to the International Cocoa Organization's April Cocoa Market Report, the 2021-2022 cocoa season is heading towards a world deficit of approximately 181,000 tons, mainly due to a shortfall in the Ghanaian production. 67-year-old Nana Kwesipoku, a cocoa farmer, fears cocoa production will drop drastically in the coming years if measures are not put in place to prevent farmers from selling their farmland to the miners.
I have done cocoa farm for close to 40 years, but I can't boast of having 4,000 cedis. So if someone offers 50,000 Ghana cedis to take over the farm, why shouldn't I give it to the person? If government does not re-strategize and put in place measures to make the farming lucrative, cocoa production will decline drastically in the coming years.
Konsu has now become the hub of mining, with thousands of youth from across the country moving there on a daily basis to engage in Galamsey to generate some income. Already, cocoa output dropped 34% in the first 6 months of the season compared with the same period last year, according to a report by Cocoa Board. This means Ghana risks losing proceeds from its main cash crop and chief agriculture exports if Galamsey activities linger on.
The sad reality is that cocoa cannot compete with gold in this area.
First, Galamsey, a course of power and this Jenny animal mark or Tony Macra, Tony Mania. Who could you mark a crona yagam to what will be when you abuse talk a crack? I want you to say, no, class to send you abuse store. And so, nay, Obacona stores me in a day. With Yana from your mamma for back, or be so can I make you man aside. After that, Namuna, Kadia, Modebay.
Last one more. Let's sing it together. You know, we have a mighty God, isn't it? Yewonyamia osumbo. Hallelujah. Yewo Yesua already maye. Oti ejanin sani faso redeema ye. Enunti esikuni ndifo. Osumbo, let's do it that way. Yewo Yesua already maye. Oti ejanin sani faso redeema ye. Enunti esikuni ndifo. Obun wedding kuo. Aye, obun wedding kuo. If we say liya otiye munu, osun sinye oria. Yewo nyame osumbo is that we have a mighty God. Yewo Yesua or Redeemer is that we have a God who deals in our favor. Oti ejani sani faso Redeemer. He's sitting on the right hand side of the Almighty and he's working for us. He is our advocate. For that reason, the devil is a defeated foe And that's why we say, Obonsam, wedding Kuguo. In Kuguo is defeat in tree, isn't it? Acknowledgements to TV3 network for the video that we showed you on Galamsey, just as a teaser. We'll be coming back to that. But I have a fascinating story to tell about politics tonight, and we put it out on our flyer, didn't we? Okay, so in the flyer we said something that we're not sure whether people were calling us and asking what does it mean. So we said between 9:05 and 9:45 we are dealing with this. A media team totally stunned by responses from live audience at a town hall meeting that seems to have gone south against the plan. More shocking details, and that you shouldn't miss this one. Okay, so look at this photograph. So without knowing what is happening, what does this photograph depict in terms of the emotions being expressed by the people in the photograph? So there are two men and two ladies. Look at their face closely. Put this on the TV and give it a close-up. Candidate number 1 in white. Candidate number 2 also in white. Look at their faces. See how shocked and flabbergasted, overwhelmed, astounded they are. They are surprised about something. See this beautiful lady, the one in the blue skirt. See the way she's looking at it. So they are looking in the direction of the stage, you know. And I'm going to show you why they were so overwhelmed. Politics can be very interesting, isn't it? Politics is very, very interesting. So viewers, that's a bit of a gossip story that we are sharing with you at the beginning of our presentation tonight. But this is what it is. So these are my friends in the media colleagues. They went to Kumasi to conduct a town hall meeting. Now, Onua FM is noted for being very critical of government, which is very necessary for a democracy. There have to be some people who are critical of government. There's no problem with that. And they broadcast matters that are critical of government. So when they set out to go out there to Kumasi, what people believe is the Ashanti region being the stronghold of the ruling government, they went out to set out a town hall meeting. And this town hall meeting was to get people to express themselves about the current economic hardships occurring in Ghana, especially, and some other parts of the world. So they were hoping, and that's our guesswork anyway, they were hoping that this town hall meeting, given their philosophy of being critical to government, going into the belly of the elephant in the Ashanti region, they were expecting widely and broadly and generally that people who turned up at the town hall meeting will be very critical of government, because it's very easy, it's a low-hanging fruit, and it's a no-brainer these days. If I set up a table somewhere and I'm live on TV and I say, people should come and tell me about their hardships, you can understand. You're going to have a lot of people come. Even in times when it's good, you're going to have people still coming to say. So they were hoping that they're going to design this coming out of the belly of their elephants, right in the center, the citadel of MPP and UP politics, Ashanti region. And they went to the Nat Hall in Kumasi in Amakom to demonstrate practically that the government was doing very badly and that the government was actually unpopular in its own stronghold. Now, listen to the story of what happened and how they look so bemused, looking at the audience who attended the program that they had set up, which was running live on television. Okay, so live on radio and television, actually, I should say. So one of them, candidate number 1, who was asked to come and speak. And you see, when they look like very normal people, they don't seem like they're politicians. They showed up and then they spoke. So the candidate number 1 came to surprisingly do a blast about free SHS. He was being asked, what are the economic hardships that you have in your pocket right now? Tell us how bad the Akufo-Addo government is doing. This was live on radio in Accra and live on another radio station in Kumasi, and they were broadcasting it. So you see how bemused they are. Let me now show you why. Show the first video, the guy who spoke about free SHS. This is what he said.
Nietoso eye miami krom kofiase ne kwai captain na ni we so wasene ma ko school say a scholarship free school free education ti wo kan wa kan ya ti ase me da wase free education Ghana ha obia ni ho ani busua ni nko obie eti aban no e ho de me man 100%. Nietoso mienu Mikro mampon kwai me papa no wo hye aman asene fo ba de me woni bedi DCE mampon kofias Kofi Ase kwai eba green book se yagusu kotal sabe ne ho ye man ho ene nanado ado dankwa ado driver na da roma ene kwa ne yayi efiri ho eko anyinasu ekwa no kohwe akaka bi ne aduru anyinasu abana yade wayade pa na ade mienu bi na mesra ban yɛse etirente ya nya kyeswa minimi nwa captain be ya adwere kakra baabi sɛ wɔnhwɛ baabi a akyea no na MP4 no a ɔmo mpɛsɛ mbɛyɛ ɔmo adwuma no wɔne ɔmo nkasa sɛ yidie na ɛwɔ hɔ a onyi ɔmo adi.
So that was okay. Back to the photograph. So please put the photographs on again. So they got there. The guy comes and says, "Oh, free SHS is great." You see the way they are being used. They were hoping people would come and talk about hardships, and then he spoke about the road to his hometown. And then another guy also came to speak about roads. So they are very surprised. The people that they went to, the people that they believed will be affected negatively by the video, which will be their opponents, political opponents, the MPP, they were not even there. Some of them, apparently, there was no flyer, so people were not even aware. And then everybody started listening to radio. And then this shocking event happened last week. It was totally shocking. So look at their faces. They are surprised. Okay, so it was a 2-day event, actually. And for the first day and the second day, the testimony that was running through from the audience, their responses was that, well, there's hardship. Nobody doubts that. Everybody agrees that there's hardship. Why there's hardship, we can differ on it. Whether it is bad governance, we can differ on it. But in terms of what has been done, what has been achieved, you can't fake that. You see, you can't create that. If circle overpass has been done, it has been done. You cannot say it hasn't been done. If people have gone to school and 1.6 million people have been educated on the back of the taxpayers' money, you cannot say that has not been done. Okay, so, and something that was not there before, which has been done now, that's what we are talking about, because leadership is a continuum. So every leader makes rules, every leader does something. But those leaders who carry the vision, they are able to drop things that are heavy, that did not used to be there, that then become part of our social thinking, becomes part of our social thought. Those are the leaders that we call visionary, isn't it? So this is really a competition about that. And I believe that 2024 election campaign is going to be heavily laden on that one. All right, so this is second video. He came speaking about roads. They believed he was coming to cry about the economic hardships that we are all facing, but he had something else to say. This is what he said.
Damasi ewo jumedi amodi abai. Yes, that's na mera ho kakra ewo video bi amoyi ye anopa ya ewo apreyi. Hwe ye wo Ghana ha o. Nana Akufo-Addo aba bedi ade 2016 ebe ya e no bedi ade. Apre kwan a omoyi ya aya tete na omoyi no. Contractor wo so a oye o. Contractor e wo so eso ose mu yi no reporter na o kasa no. Asif say ekwan no ye giant one ma omo enye ye de ye wa no ma ye ba be bona na do abaso ama obia wunyuma pa na do oye na abusafo mutie say yanhwe ye ni ata no ma obia betena krom a ena na do wanya hwe na do wanya hwe a yanhwe ye Nyankopon kwa obetua ye ka what I say hwe yeti kromu asayo Kumasi airport Kumasi airport obia mo amotie me challenge mo nyina say ye free ya obia ko Kumasi airport na mo ko hwe no mapa ekoso ho akuma na Akufo-Addo aban e no ba ya oye so what I say na Akufo-Addo aban e no ba ya oye na Akufo-Addo ba ye say e ya de a ye wura jo mama oba e be di ade oba ye na ko ye twa mu ba bia na aduru ya e ka na do ba ye ko no so watra ho e ka watra ho mimianom me kasa chemo ene obi a wo TV bia say mayen tra ho e ma obi a na da ye se na do ba ye wo nya hwe na do wo bodwuma pa.
Are you now beginning to follow why you have these faces here? Please put the faces on again. Look at their faces. Oh God. But is that how to do politics? You see, I keep saying politics and journalism is an intellectual exercise. Tell them that this is the document, the sessional address Akufo-Addo read in 2017. Out of the things he said he would do, he has done this, he has done that, he has not done this. Show that the government is incompetent by doing a cogent intellectual analysis. Nobody will begrudge you. But if you want to fish and catch, go to Kumasi and do, everybody come and talk about economic hardship. Yeah, you know people are suffering, so, they move to Kumasi, come. Everybody say what is wrong with you. Say how much petrol was in 2014. Tell them how much you are buying the petrol now. That's what they were looking for. Look at their faces. See, project it again. Look at our man, the captain. Oh my God. Hey. These things, 2024's election is going to be brutal. So this is day one. They did 2 days, same testimony. Then they had their friend Apia Stadium, whom I know, also to come and talk. I will show you the response that Apia Stadium got from the audience. Another guy came, third one. So you see how they are bemused. Protect the thing. I like the lady in the blue skirt. You see, she's just worried that, what is happening? Look at the other lady. I like her shoes, white shoes. And the nice top. I think her braids are great as well. But look at her face again. Yeah, she doesn't know what to tell the next lady. The next lady who's holding the microphone doesn't know what to tell Captain. As for this guy, he takes his hand around his lips. He's totally shocked. But this was their event. They wanted people to come and say something. People came, regular people, not politicians, regular people came and said the opposite. And everything the regular people said, they were pointing to it. They were not imagining. The first guy comes and says, free SHS, I can point to it. Second guy comes and says, I know about the road. Your reporter, when he was showing it, he didn't show the contractor was on. He is criticizing the media for poor journalism. The normal guy, everyday guy, is criticizing the Onia FM people that what you did on this particular road was poor journalism. He didn't even go as far as saying that it's partisan, it's biased. No, that's okay. He said it was poor journalism because the contractor was right there. And your reporter deliberately obscured the work that the contractor is doing so that he can create a story that roads are not being done. This is kind of horrendous politics that they do all the time. A reporter goes, what kind of journalism is this? A reporter goes there, ordinary people see the report and they say, but this reporter was so unfair. The contractor was working on the contract on the road. He was there. And then they depicted it to obscure the work of the contractor so that they can come to a false conclusion for the purpose of propaganda. What's the meaning of propaganda? Propaganda in the dictionary means lies. Google propaganda right now, lies. Historically, a political party in Ghana used to have somebody called propaganda secretary. It took Peter McMahon to complain at IPAC that look at this political party. They actually have somebody called propaganda secretary. What is propaganda? It's lies. After a bit of pressure, they changed it and they now call it Director of Communication Sami Jemfi. Fifi Kwete, when he was Director of Communication, was called NDC Propaganda Secretary. What is propaganda? Lies. And they have in their national executive, when they sit down as a national executive, they have one person in the executive who is responsible for dishonest communication. He is called propaganda secretary. Is that how we build a country? Is that how to, even Rawlings who set up the party will not be happy with this. Is that how to build a country? And whilst they've taken off the propaganda secretary, the ethos of what they do is what was reflected in Kumasi. You're going there, the guy comes and says, but your reporter showed it. He didn't show it well. Okay, let's go to the third video. Here it is. Have a look.
Yeah, that's it.
Now, I'm on my name, Koso, my mupao. Minim Saman for Musa name, Koso, my mudia. To me, Yikajimai, a name, Koso, my mupa. And Yama, Koso, my mu. Because Mr. 1D, 1F, Momemo Kufuado Abaso. Remember, Nana Adodanko Kufuado Abaso. 1D, 1F. Obviously, say, make 1D, 1F, once a man. No one listen to make Mabama Asante man who say, Asante rating, your 1D, 1F. So, Oko Casaprekwa, Danoso, Casaprekwa Company Limited. Aye Juma our Ashanti region. You were Vesta Oil Processing. Aye Juma our Ashanti region. There was Spring and Boats Company Limited. Aye Juma our Ashanti region. You were Preforce Ghana Limited. ɛyɛ adwuma ɛwɔ Ashanti region. Yɛwɔ Skyline Street Company Limited. Ɛyɛ adwuma ɛwɔ Ashanti region. Yɛwɔ Unij. Ɛyɛ adwuma ɛwɔ Ashanti region. Yɛwɔ Asamoah and Yamua Farms. Ɛyɛ adwuma ɛwɔ Ashanti region. Ne nyinaa yɛ 1D 1F. Ana nado danko akufuado apreso ana atumi aba. Ɛwɔ me sɛ menyini bia miswa. Nanso me hu na aba bia ba o mewe mu a. Wotuma yɛ 1D 1F bebrebe wei ɛwɔ mayi mu.
After every video, I like you to watch them again. So please project it. Okay, with each video, we'll choose one of the 4 that we can describe their emotions well. On this occasion, let me pick up. I still like the lady in blue skirt, shall I just. What? So, yeah, so that's it. That's what happened in Kumasi. Now, another person came who went even more political. Because I guess that this other candidate knew about the political background of the people who were organizing the program. So he went a bit more direct to do and illustrate a comparison between President Mohammed's administration and President Akufo-Addo's administration. He was bold enough to do that. I'm not sure whether he did it very well, given that he's not a politician, he's not a commentator, he's just a normal, regular person. But he tried to do some comparative analysis of the two. Have a listen to that.
Yeah, Damas, Capsus Mast, and Akuma FM, and in Penifo, Yamishram. Now, Jana Majun in Sembi, no, might be a hammy. Sir. Yɛhwɛ MPP abaye ne yɛhwɛ NDC abaye onua MPP abaye adi ɔman so sɛe mfie sɛe ɛno na mensɛ ana NDC nso adi sɛe ɛno na siaka ɔmampani Lawrence ɛne Atames na bemfa ne kransie yi ɛne mama Yahuwa mu amamuona yakaba mo eyesai na MPP de yesai enti sa wo mo di kan no aye eno ma nyina yie na MPP ba na yeso beto aso a enkomenka yegina hene na yensa musi ya ho se yehwe MPP abaye eni NDC abaye Why? Ana waba wabua ahiafo ani asikafo mo mu nyaya pe mo ya musi ho.
So that was the guy who did the comparison. Do you think he did the comparison well? Do you think he should have said more? Do you think okay. Now, there was another lady whose video we had to do a bit of work on. It wasn't very clear, the audio and all that, but we put some work together so that at least it's audible and you can hear and you can sort of follow it as well. She talked about the efforts, and that's really my point. The effort that government is making to they who are the market sellers. They are really the backbone of our economy and the backbone of our livelihoods, the market sellers. And she said government has come in there to the market, in Central Market, in KJT, and Asafo Market, to actually give them loans of about 5,000 cedis. And that she reported that government has actually given loans to 1,200 women. This has never been reported. No government portal has reported this. No state media has not reported it. It has not been reported. This is the people who are trying to solve the problem as the government going down and working with the market sellers. I'd never heard it before. They have not even propagandized it, but they've done it. And so the market women are aware. So when you bring the propaganda, the market women will face you with the truth. Listen to Hajia. She spoke at the event. This is Hajia talking.
Me pamuchawo sabi mi duru ba bi na me tisi asi ya pasanteme ya sada no enko ne kwaya me fa soda eti me baduru ha no omuso omu pasanteme ye no mani age pa nti nya me nhira wo mu a omu hihya sa program we na de meka ne sai ye ne e wa nyina abeka se Ghana ayeden eye no kure Ghana emu ayeden kakra na so opese ohu se Ghana ayeden a chiso obusa Central Market de enti Ghana ayeden yes Central Market for any betimi akire aban no ene ne dom de enti Ghana emu atimi ayeden kakra ya wa Central Market na ne emu bu Central Market no ye kodwom 6 o'clock.
No, I like you to listen to Hajia again, please. Please play Hajia again. Please play Hajia again.
wo sabe me duru ba bi na me tisi asi ya pa santime ya sada no enko ne kwa ya me fa so da eti me beduru ha no omo so omo pa santime ye no mani age pa nti nya me nhira wo mo a omo hihya sa program we na de meka ne sai ye ne wa nyina abeka se Ghana ayeden eya no kora Ghana emu ayeden kakra na so pesa wo hu se Ghana ayeden a chiso obusa Central Market de enti Ghana ayeden ye Central Market for ye ne betimi a kire abai no ene ne dom de enti Ghana emu atimi ayeden kakra ye wa Central Market na ne emu bu Central Market no ye ko dom 6 o'clock.
I wasn't there. But you heard it. Okay, so now on day 2, I believe, NDC communicator Apia Stadium joined the event, and we'll hear him, but you can't hear him very well. What you hear, though, is the people clapping him away from the stage. But he's an important figure in the National Democratic Congress's communication as far as Ashanti region is concerned. So he was there, he spoke, but you've seen it. And let's listen to what we can get from Apia Stadium, and then we'll wrap this up. I don't have much to say. The text messages will say themselves. So here's Apia Stadium, also trying to salvage the situation. Yes, so I know you didn't hear it well. Forgive me, that video is not a very good video. But I just wanted to get the sense of what happened when Mr. Apia Stadium joined the fray at the NAT Hall, Teachers Hall in Kumasi. For the last time, let me bring back the 4 generals who marshaled the troops. And then we'll talk about them, and then we end the spy. We'll go to social media. If you have anything to say to me, to them, to whatever we are doing, whether you like the show, you don't like it, whether you think we are being gossipy and petty and it's not important, whatever you think, send it to Good Evening Ghana Official right now. And our social media editors, the 3 ladies are editing tonight with Mikhael. They will read it. Okay, final comment. In the name of God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Wow. I wish I had their phone numbers. I can send them WhatsApp, and I wish I had their mail addresses. I could send them chocolates. Oh my goodness. If you have something to send them, please send them chocolates, yeah? And then we can save our cocoa farms so we can eat more chocolate. Send them chocolate. They need chocolates. On FM, you guys need chocolates plenty. Please get them chocolate, a lot of chocolate. This guy needs more chocolate. He needs a lot more chocolate. Maybe for him, you add a bit of water. So he can drink water. She will need nice chocolate, nicely done. They are ladies. Chocolate and probably cake, cake made of chocolate fondant, that kind of thing. Send it to them so that they can have some pleasure. It's 10 o'clock exactly on the table. And that is why for us who hold our faith in God, we say that, please give it to me one more time. Give it to me one more time and then I'll be back on the touch screen. I'll be back. Text messages are coming so thick and fast that I like them to put it together well for those of you who have seen it. So whilst we are waiting for them to put together the text message, and whilst we are still talking about Ashanti region, and that which has reminded me of some of the great men of Ashanti region, I have been directly reminded of the event at the Academy of Arts and Sciences recently when I had the occasion to MC the event, and I was called upon to introduce somebody. And I gave a short history of something about Ashanti region with a bit of humor about the MPP's Congress in 2024. I've shown you this video before. It's 6 minutes long. After 6 minutes, we would have been able to put our messages together. You have to listen to what people are saying about this as the people, our social media editors, get ready to read. Let's go back, though, to the Teachers Hall. Come back after 6 minutes, hear the messages, and we continue with Good Evening Ghana. It's live. Another round of applause for our chairman. So the significance of Bafo Akoto are many, but one of them has to do with the famous court case in the 1960s. The Parliament of Ghana had passed the Preventive Detention Act. They call it the PDA. And there was an act passed by the parliament. Never mind, it was a lopsided parliament at the time, but it was still the Parliament of Ghana. And they passed the law to allow the president and the Minister for Interior to arrest people on suspicion that they may be planning to conduct activities that will destabilize the government. It was fairly abused, that PDA law, as sometimes happens to draconian laws like that. And Bafo became a victim because he was a fierce opponent of the government. And Bafo's opposition to the government was purely based on its human rights record. He believed that Ghanaians must have the rights to develop in freedom. And so he was a fierce opponent to the government's policies that brought Ghana to a draconian state. He was arrested. And the Attorney General of the day, an Irishman called Geoffrey Inn, successfully argued before the Supreme Court that the Parliament was sovereign and that the Parliament has passed the law and no other law can change that. Dr. Dankwa strenuously argued before the court that the Parliament of Ghana is not like the Parliament of the United Kingdom, where the Irish lawyer was coming from, that the United Kingdom did not have a written constitution. However, that Ghana had a written constitution. Dr. Dankwa's problem, though, was that he was unable to find in the written constitution a clear human rights charter. So he cleverly went to the oath of the president, which was attached to the constitution, and said that in the president's oath, he had promised to do rights to all manner of persons, which is the same oath that President Kufuor took, to do rights to all manner of persons. The court held that the president's oath is just words. and that Dr. Dankwa cannot rely on it to say that PDA was violating aspects of the Constitution. And so the Attorney General won the day, and Balfour remained in prison, and Dr. Dankwa lost. It was Dankwa's arguments and the thinking of the day that then informed the clear Human Rights Charter in 1969 Constitution, 1979 Constitution, and today we have a clear Human Rights Charter in the 1992 Constitution. So, Ochiame, we still owe him a lot. I'm going to say two stories, and you know, for us journalists, we always get into trouble with these stories, but I will get into trouble, I'm sorry. Two stories, one from 1955 and one from 3 days ago. Honorable Minister, I came to your office 3 days ago, isn't it? Yeah, 3 days ago, yeah. So in 1955, the National Liberation Movement had just been formed. And the first person out of whom I heard this name, B.F. Kusi, was actually President Kufuor. And President Kufuor was telling me the story that he's quite sad that our young generation, they don't meet politicians like B.F. Kusi. I don't know him, I never saw him. But President Kufuor seemed to be very enamored about this B.F. Kusi guy. He's talked about him quite a bit. So when I read Dennis Austin's book, where he had detailed the by-election in 1955, now this was very dramatic. The CPP was in control, and the chairman talked about how CPP got some support in Ashanti with key people like Victor Uzu and others. And again, it was Balfour that brought them back out of that. But a by-election had occurred in Achumangwa Bieja, the same constituency that President Kufuor later represented, because Mr. Grant, the CPP candidate, had died, unfortunately, in a plane crash. NLM has just been formed. Balfour had a challenge. He needed to demonstrate that LLM was a formidable force in Ashanti. If you read the account of Austin, there was a lot of communication between Kojobo, Tio, Kroboduse, and Nkrumah in terms of how that by-election should be managed. President Nkrumah recognized the election as an important watershed in terms of valuing the new National Liberation Movement. Balfour marshaled forces there. In fact, at some point, Kroboduse wrote to Nkrumah that he shouldn't come because it was not safe for him to be there. That the people of Achumangwa were opening up vehicles that arrived in the town, ostensibly for the campaign, and asking where is Nkrumah to harm him, so that Nkrumah should not attend, but they were going to manage and win. In the end, Balfour won. B.F. Kusi was elected as in the by-election. And so, round of applause for him. So when you think of this story, and you know that Ochiame is a warrior, so then that story 3 days ago, I showed up in the Honorable's office, as I do regularly, and I said, Honorable, the people are talking about you. He said, Paul, I'm going to win. I said, you're going to win what? He said, I'll win the contest. I said, well, I heard some people say that, and then he laughed. I said, yes, I'm not spoiling. So I heard him say all that, and he's a Chameba, so you got to take him a bit serious. But when I came here today, Dr. Friye says he's going to win, and he's sitting by Alanche Martin. Party chairman, you didn't hear that. You didn't hear that. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to bring back Kwame Dinkra to bring in the party chairman. Thank you very much. Okay. Let me begin with you, Hajia. What are our viewers saying?
Okay, so this is from Otu Asari. He says, I like your calmness while doing your analysis. Great work. Alex Tufo says, Ghanaians must not follow the dirty journalism. The people of Kumasi have really shown their maturity and want those with propaganda theories to know that they cannot convince them, as they know what Nanado has done to Ashanti region, no matter the global economic crisis. Enima Daniel says, the people of Kumasi have made us understand that the ordinary Ghanaians sometimes have the fact than people who are privileged to have the mic. Next time, they should advise themselves. Robert Jacob says, Paul and his intellectual young presenters, we are again dismantling the lies out there, watching your popular show from Chicago. Emmanuel Akofo says, violence. Eshon Baba says, I love you, Paul. So Francis says, this is the most honest and educative program in Ghana presently. Thank you, Paul. I wish you and your team God's blessings. Dennis Okansi says, ha, Paul, you are too much, the best journalist of our time.
Link up whenever you are in London for a pint of beer. Joe Dawson says, God bless you, my brother Paul. Continue doing the Lord's work. Prince says, good evening, Paul. This is the officer you met at Sinyani Airport. Myself and my lovely wife are watching you live in Sinyani. Keep up the good work you are doing for Mother Ghana.
And coming from Imoro, the very intelligent Paul, Godapia also says that Killer Punch from the song speaks for itself. Sean Baba is saying, we love you, Paul, with a lot of love emojis. And then coming from Berima Opare Odante, he says, keep on the good work, Paul. Obapa Amasewa also says, Mr. Paul Adom, you are too much. Praman is saying, doing the Lord's work, Apostle Paul. Don Medical is also saying that this program is called Watch and Burn the Sea, with emojis. And then Emmanuel Kwame Atupobe is also saying, love him or hate him, he's one of our finest. Coming from Ebenezer Barnes, you are very good when it comes to real matter. Emmanuel Boama is also saying, good evening, Mr. Paul. In fact, I really like everything about you. Continue the good work and God will always protect you.
Right. This is from Atura Man watching us from Upper West. He says, we do enjoy your program, sir, but if you could replay where Hajia started, Assalamu alaikum. Colin Serum watching us from West Legon says, the benefits they're mentioning all fall within the Ashanti region. I understand that some of these journalists are politically affiliated. Let's talk nationalistic. When you ask the same questions, people from different regions, like the North and Volta, you'll recognize how deprived they've been of development. The fact that Kumasi may be experiencing some benefits does not mean it cuts across all regions. However, to hold a meeting just to talk about the negatives only of the government is not the best way to boost national development. Marcus, watching us from Ho in the Volta region, says, hello, Paul. You are doing a marvelous job. Keep the fire burning. The NDC are... Oh, okay, I can't read this. He continues, Ghanaians are not dumb to believe their falsehood and propaganda. They should tell Ghanaians what solutions they have on board and stop the lies and falsehood. Obi, watching us from Nkwanta South, says, Mr. Otre, has this really happened in the town hall meeting organized by Captain Smart? Godwin jokes. He says, Paul, your voice, dear. Well, Paul is a good singer. Let's continue. Mohammed says, indeed, you are a journalist with distinction. Keep up the good work. Who Jah blesses, no man can curse. What will Captain Smart tell his paymasters? Adolf, watching us from Newbury, says, Paul, I thought you would translate the tree to English for those of us who do not understand it. Okay, Yasir Arafat says, good evening, Paul. What else should we expect from the people? Ghanaians are enlightened, so no room for cheap propaganda. Awudu Tijani says, good job, Paul, haha. Captain Smart was disgraced to the apex. Greetings to Zibila constituency organizer. Now, this is from Salisu Setre. It says, with the current inflation rate in Ghana and that's matter Africa. In order to correct this menace, let's invest more of our in our agri sector, reduce exportation of raw materials, cut down imports, especially on things that we can produce locally and we are good to as a continent. Sadly for us as a country, climate change on the rise, we need quick action. We will have ourselves to blame if we don't support the government to stop illegal mining, just like politicians are blaming on each other the continuous inflation rate. President Akufo-Addo is doing his part, hence the citizens must come together. Over to you, Paul.
Okay, so we heard that. We're going on to another story that does not excite me at all. It's about Burkina Faso. We're going to give you the details of what is happening, why what is happening. Al-Hassan Bello has been looking at it all through the weekend. He has made phone calls. He has some analysis. For young people who want to understand, we are very concerned about the situation in Burkina Faso. Thankfully, Ghana is no longer leading ECOWAS. We don't have the headline responsibility. It's gone over to another country, but Burkina is our northern neighbor, and so we are particularly worried about it. After the break, we go on the touch screen to tell you the details about the Burkina Faso story. In 2022, a barely 32-year-old man has taken over Burkina Faso. A captain in the army has taken over Burkina Faso and says that he's the new leader of the former French colony. After the break, we'll get the details.
Located in the beautiful neighborhood of East Legon, Accra, AH Hotel and Conference has all the comfort and luxury you need for the perfect getaway. From check-in to check-out, our friendly staff look forward to pampering you and making your stay special. Our new safety features, such as shielded check-in desks, masked employees, and contactless restaurant menus and door keys, will give you peace of mind as you enjoy your stay. Our spacious and contemporary designed rooms and suites are the height of luxury and style, fitted with modern amenities for your convenience. Take your company to the next level when you host a conference or meeting in our ultra-modern conferencing complex. But don't forget to take time to relax and rejuvenate as you enjoy our many on-site facilities such as our gym, pool, and world-class restaurant. Locate us near American House or call or visit us online today to start planning your next stay. AH Hotel and Conference. Afrocentric.
Done. He dribbles to the right. He's got an opportunity on the edge of the penalty box. He's gone past the defense. This must surely be it. It's in. It's a goal.
Only 150 pesos. You can win up to 16.5 million Ghana cedis in the Betway Atina Ketia jackpot. A jackpot muhine. Bet responsibly, not for persons under the age of 18. This advert has been approved by the Gaming Commission of Ghana.
The show, and let's get ready now to go over to the touch screen and listen to Bello on the very sad story of the difficulties that are being encountered in the West African country of Burkina Faso, formerly called Upper Volta, forged very good relations with Ghana in the days of J.J. Rawlings, because Mr. Rawlings and Captain Thomas Sankara, who is behind me on the projector screen, were very, very good friends. Thomas Sankara was also admired by many Ghanaians, cast in the mold of Che Guevara or maybe a Colonel Gaddafi in the early days, or if you like a Fidel or Raul Castro. Thomas Sankara was agile on Africa's independent development. He used words like neocolonialism and all of that. Eventually, Captain Sankara was failed to survive a palace coup of sorts. He was overthrown by one of his trusted generals, Blaise Compaoré, and Blaise Compaoré also occasioned the execution of Sankara. A few weeks ago, a court in Burkina Faso had found Blaise Compaoré responsible for the murder of Thomas Sankara and a sentence in absentia. Blaise Compaoré was not living in the country at the time. He was probably living in Côte d'Ivoire, which is believed that he was living in Côte d'Ivoire. And the coup leader continued affairs in Burkina Faso, had a bit of tussle with ECOWAS. When Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, president of Ghana, was the ECOWAS leader, he had a bit of tussle with ECOWAS. Eventually, he and ECOWAS agreed on a certain timetable towards the return to constitutional rule. But just at the weekend, before the weekend started on Friday, that coup leader who was negotiating with ECOWAS had been overthrown. A new leader had showed up. BBC had done some work on him. And in his first press conference, he began by apologizing to the audience that most of the audience are older than him, but that he had to do what he had to do. He was not happy with it, but he had to do it for a certain reason. Let me now turn to Al-Hassan Bello to give us the details of it. Why do you have Sankara's photograph here?
Thomas Sankara remained a ghost that never faded off behind the regime of Blaise Compaoré. And he categorically stated that whilst revolutionary as an individual can be murdered, you cannot kill an idea. You cannot kill ideas. So he refused to die. Sort of. And then, as usual, ECOWAS and AU will come out with a statement of condemnation.
After the coup? Yeah. So what were the elements before, what was the situation before the coup?
So we are looking at three different perspectives. One, we need to look at the remote historic background of the coup, the division within the military itself that orchestrated this coup. And the secondly, we need to look at the, what do you call it, the security situation that was used. And then thirdly, we need to look at the geopolitical contest between France and Ivory Coast on one hand, and then Russia on the other side.
France, Ivory Coast on the same side.
Yeah.
In a sort of influencing Burkina's politics.
Yeah.
France, Cote d'Ivoire, one side. And Russia and who?
Russia on the other side.
Russia on the
other
other
remember
side.
the policy of Francophrique in West Africa is centered around the person of Houphouët-Boigny. And the murder of Thomas Sankara was actually orchestrated by Francois Mitterrand, Houphouët-Boigny, and Blaise Compaoré.
Was it an ideological war? Was Sankara looking like an East Ender in terms of political East?
Sankara was non-aligned, but ideologically he was a Marxist, perhaps one of the most extreme Marxist leaders to ever emerge on the African continent. And because of his young age, he was also very influential to the youth. And then France was afraid of this precedent that if one state is able to break away from the whole concept of Francophrique, begin to create a wildfire. But Sankara wasn't actually anti-French. He was seeking to realign the relationship from to more quid pro quo.
From like a beggar boss status to partnership.
More like those exploitative ones that we have today. So this is the AU statement, Addis Ababa, and strong support.
Okay, no, let's get back to wrap up. So the situation before the coup was what? Who was the leader? Who was the threat?
So then
what was the politics
that
going?
Takes us back to 1987.
So back to 87.
87.
Who is this here? Blaise Compaoré?
This is Blaise Compaoré.
Okay. What was his role in Sankara's administration? I think he was National Security Advisor of sorts.
But then he was in charge of the security. But then there was this deputy who was also killed alongside Sankara.
Okay.
Captain Moussa Diallo.
Moussa Diallo.
He was the deputy of Sankara.
Okay.
They were killed together by by Blaise Compaoré. But you know, as they say, dead men don't talk. But Sankara refused to die. And then one of the things that made him very popular was that Sankara was not just popular within the military. He was equally popular across the nation. You know, he changed the name of the country from Upper Volta to Burkina Faso. And in changing the name, Burkina Faso literally means land of the upright people. So he didn't just give them an identity. He sought to give them a sense of purpose and a sense of pride. So throughout the reign of Blaise Compaoré, there's been this desire by the people to know what happened to Sankara.
Is the court situation not satisfactorily ending that?
But we'll get to that. The court closed the case, but then one thing he said is that a soldier without political training is only a potential criminal.
And this is Sankara speaking.
This is Sankara speaking. You know, he's from a military background.
Yeah, of course.
But then this statement is one thing I'm sure the Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the current coup plotter, might have been accustomed to. What it creates is that it creates an army that is really loyal to the people, in quote, not the regime in power. So what Blaise Compaoré did when he got power was that he knew he couldn't trust the larger army because of the influence of Sankara. He created a different unit. So Burkina Faso always had this divided army. He created a different unit.
Elite unit,
RSP, Presidential Security Regiment. That was supposed to protect his life. He was afraid of reprisals and also secure the regime. So that was a unit that was used in this course of his 27 year to promote his oppressive policy. So that unit was what was dreaded by the population, not the larger army itself. The army has always been respected by the people. So that's a division now. Captain Traoré is from the main unit, the army itself.
The regular army.
The army. And they have that influence and loyalty and more of like, they are more receptive to the people. And then moreover, I'm sure growing up, you should be accustomed to the ideas of...
He was born after Sankara had died.
Yeah, Sankara was killed 87. He was born, I think, 88.
Okay.
So he was very young. But growing up...
No, he was Sankara died, he was not born.
Yeah, he wasn't born.
Okay, but he must have grown up to read about... and hear his parents talk about Sankara.
Whether coincidentally or by design, is of the same age and rank now
as captain.
Sankara when he came to power.
Blaise Compaoré was captain too.
But I'm talking about the age.
Okay,
Sankara was 34 at the time of his assumption of power. He was equally a captain. Ibrahim Traoré is equally a captain in the same age, 34. But then, so now what happened is that Damiba is from the unit that is loyal to Blaise Compaoré.
Damiba is the deposed leader now.
He is the deposed leader now.
Okay, what's happening to him, by the way? Where is he?
You know,
in terms of his safety and security, where is he?
He negotiated his exit and left the country.
Oh, they had time to do all that?
Yeah, and that is what resulted to the anti-French riot we saw in the capital. You know, the first coup, the coup itself was on 30th, on Friday, right? And then on Saturday, there was this rumor that he went into one of the French military bases in the country. And then on Saturday evening, I think in the night, there was this counter-attack by his loyalists within the army, trying to regain control.
I see.
But then that also created, when the regime, the new guys announced that he was hiding the French embassy trying to mount a counter-attack, all of a sudden citizens poured out and were ransacking French embassy, French consulate, and French interests in Ivory Coast.
Oh, I see. The regime announced during the fighting that Damiba is mobilizing a counterattack out of the French embassy.
Was residing in the French military base.
And so the citizens went out ransacking French interests.
Yeah, French interests across the country.
So that means immediately that suggests that the citizens were with the coup. They were agreeing with the overthrow of Damiba. Is that correct?
Sure.
But that's interesting.
So
then how did he leave the country?
So he negotiated his way out.
With the new coup. You have it. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
What happens, I see, he's from the unit that is more loyal to what you call it, to Blaise Compaoré. But that unit has never gained the respect of the people. But the larger army has always been loyal to the people. You quite remember when Compaoré was overthrown in 2014, there was this interim arrangement which Michel Kafando was leading the country. And there was this counter coup that was led by General Dindiri, who was the head of the RSP at the time of Compaoré.
The RSP being the elite unit,
the elite
like
unit.
our 64.
Yeah, Presidential Security Regiment. By then, General Dindiri was in charge. He was an ally of Compaoré. He was even believed to be part of the team that killed Sankara. So he mounted a counter coup to overthrow the interim government. So but whilst he secured the control of the capital, the larger army threatened to march across the country to storm the unit in the capital if they don't relinquish power. So cornered in the house and pressured by ECOWAS, Dindiri had to give way for the interim government to be reinstalled. So afterwards, the unit was dissolved. The RSP was dissolved and spread across other components of the armed forces. But then they still had that sense of entitlement and loyalty
to him.
To Blaise Compaoré.
To Blaise Compaoré, okay.
So, you know, this is a statement they issued. One of the, in their whole...
Who is issuing the statement?
The spokesman for the
coup.
Yeah.
So
but the same person equally announced the coup of Damiba.
This is the man, the same individual.
Yeah.
This is Traoré.
No.
Not Traoré. Somebody in Traoré's camp.
This is Traoré.
Yes.
And this is Damiba.
Yeah, that's Damiba. Who is making the announcement?
The spokesman for the... You know, it's a palace coup.
Yes, spokesman for Traoré.
No, spokesman for Traoré.
Was Traoré part of Damiba's administration?
He was part of the unit, the military.
The elite one?
No, he was part of the administration, the junta.
He was part of the junta. So he was occupying, he had a role to play.
Yeah, but he wasn't a front man.
Okay.
They had an agreement. But you know, one of the things the issue was that they said, we have decided to take responsibilities driven by a single ideal. The restoration of security and integrity of our territory. The soldiers announced on the state. Faced with deteriorating situation, we tried several times to get Damiba to refocus the transition on the security question. Damiba's action, they felt, but then...
Damiba's actions gradually convinced us that his ambitions were diverting away from what we set out to do. We decided this day to remove Damiba.
Okay. I remember Damiba touted himself as this sort of security expert, this military strategist. He even published a book titled West African Armies and State Response to Terrorism or so, in which he postulated some theories or way of fighting terrorism. But then under his watch, the state lost about 40% of its territory to the terrorists.
Oh, I see.
So now the state is in control of just 60%. That was one of the...
Which terrorist?
The Islamists, the jihadists.
Russian or jihadists?
No, the jihadists.
The jihadists, okay.
You know, there's this, what do you call it? As you can see, these three countries,
Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso,
are facing intense, what do you call it, terroristic, a challenge to their territorial sovereignty.
Yeah.
So he touted himself as the genius who could do the magic. But under his watch, they lost more territory. So, but then, also, this statement is only a way of justifying the coup. But the straw that broke the camel's back actually was his attempt. That's what they said. He was focusing on the transition, not the security. Despite a pending court order that Blaise Compaoré should be jailed for the murder of Sankara, he rather invited Sankara and Compaoré into the country for some sort of some political dialogue with all political forces.
Also, Blaise Compaoré found himself back in Ouagadougou.
Yeah, he came to Ouagadougou despite a court order. And that was a straw that broke the camel back.
And they were supposed to discuss matters about the transition.
Yeah.
But why is that wrong? I mean, if you're discussing transition or giving the court's verdict against him.
One, the larger military, knowing that they were neglected by Compaoré, were never really in support of him. But because they were just incapacitated, they couldn't mount any challenge to his reign. Secondly, for killing Thomas Sankara, he's always never enjoyed public support. And then the subsequent trial just, confirmed what the people have always believed. So bringing him in was like weakening yourself. But he had to do that because he felt cornered within the ruling junta. There was this argument on whether to employ Wagner Group. The West will call them mercenaries, but then Russia see them as private military contractors, which they are, unless we can dispute whatever then. There was this argument whether to employ them because Mali has employed them in the fight against jihadists.
Who was thinking of employing them? Damiba?
There was this debate.
Among the junta?
Among the junta.
Whether they should employ the Wagner group to secure their territory.
Yeah, to give them assistance in areas that they can.
But that's undermining the sovereignty of Burkina Faso, isn't it?
But
if a whole Burkina Faso as an army can ask bandits to come and perform banditry.
No, not bandits.
They are bandits. What are they?
They are private military contractors.
Yeah, that's banditry.
And it's a trend across the world. Even US.
No, I'm not saying it's good or it's bad, but it's banditry.
No. There are sometimes it's...
They only work in failed states. They cannot work in any proper states.
But US used Blackwater Security Company in Iraq, which is US.
But that's Iraq. It's a failed state.
No, but it was US, not Iraq, using Blackwater.
Yes, but if US goes to Iraq to intervene, they can hire bandits to take territory for them. But this is Burkina Faso in our own country, like Ghana. We have our own country. We have insurgents from west, north, south, east. And then our chief of defense staff is discussing with the cabinet whether we should hire Wagner Group to come and secure Ghanaian territory for the Ghanaian armed forces. That's a failed state.
No, it depends.
If they got to that conversation, that's
it depends on the political calculation. Sometimes it's better to use them than to use regular forces.
It may be better, but you get to the point where you call it better when you're a failed state.
It exposes the limitation of your capability sometimes.
Yes, of the military.
Of the military.
Yes, very much.
But then it depends on the interest. There are times when it's better to use them because they are expendable and the body bags don't rise and the political pressure don't mount.
But you don't do that in your own country.
You can.
Well, that means your state is failed. If we are going to Liberia to take territory and we get involved in an ECOWAS battle or ECOMOG, something like that, and we feel that, look, for us to save our people, let's give GNS Sebo, which is our military ship, to the bandits. Yeah. That's all they need. And we'll give them some planes and they will deal with this thing for us. And after that, we're expendable, yes. But if you need them to protect your territory for you, that's one you are getting into a very serious situation.
We need to look at it.
Because if Burkina does that, bring in Wagner Group to secure their territory for them, no one here is safe from the hands of the Wagner Group. And if Ghana becomes aware that there is a bandit group called Wagner working like ISIS or Al-Qaeda, all of them.
They are private military contractors.
What about that? They are military private. Any private military institution is dangerous.
It's just like the UN.
Military should not be private.
No, but I know it's just like UN peacekeepers. Even when they come to your country.
UN peacekeepers are not private.
No, I'm coming. Even when UN peacekeepers come to your country, they have modus operandi.
Yes.
They liaise with the government.
Yes.
Likewise, when they come,
the Wagner Group.
Yeah.
Who UN security, UN peacekeepers, you can identify them. You know their leader. You know the mandate that brought them to the country. What takes Wagner Group around the world? No mandate. They just show up. They have weapons. And they are stronger than some armies.
No, I think under the Geneva Convention, I can't remember the exact provision, but there are provisions that make room for the use of quote and unquote.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It cannot be in your own country.
No,
if you are in a battle
but
somewhere.
You see, the problem with the whole fight against insurgency in West Africa is that we are facing an extraterritorial, what do you call it, challenge, but we are confronting it on the basis of sovereignty. The terrorists don't respect borders.
Yeah, so we need to have enough
military
strength to crush them.
We need to have this kind of arrangement that allows one side to aid the other in terms of cross-border, what do you call it. But you see...
You want to introduce that to West Africa?
Well, they exist in some part, but they are just not effective. For example, in the...
But Nigeria did not need that to deal with the Boko Haram threat. The Nigerian military dealt with the Boko Haram threat.
No, I'm saying that. You see, in the... Even what do you call it? Mercenaries were employed in the earlier days under Jonathan. It took a while for the Nigerian army to retool and fight. But
Buhari didn't employ any.
No, he did. But Jonathan
did.
But Jonathan did.
That may be why Jonathan lost the elections. Because Nigerians may have been concerned That what are you doing? You are bringing in private military to do what?
One of the reasons for his loss was that people felt that when he wanted to win the election after postponing the election from February to March 28, within that short space of time, he was able to use the army, marshal all the resources needed to clear Boko Haram out of some territories they've been in control of
for years.
For years. So they're like, if you could do this now,
why couldn't you do it before?
So that was one of the reasons why he lost. But he felt that securing that success would have aided him. What I'm saying is that even within the Lake Chad region, we have what we call this multinational joint task force that was supposed to have the mandate to go across the borders of the Lake Chad basin countries without recourse to sovereignty. But even with that, there is this gap within its efficiency. I don't know if it's because of the language barrier, Nigeria being Anglophone and the other side being Francophone, except Cameroon, which is both bilingual. But what I'm saying is that we are dealing with an extraterritorial challenge, but we are still responding to it on the basis of sovereignty.
We'll come back. Let's not digress. Let's get back to Blaise Compaoré's involvement with the transition process, which you say may have infuriated part of the junta, for which reason we have this coup. So Compaoré came in and went out?
Compaoré was invited by Damiba, but I think it was also sort of he being cornered. He felt that he's lost the argument within the unit, and they felt that inviting Compaoré was a way of strengthening his hand as against them.
Okay.
You know, the army was always divided between the main army, the larger army, which existed to carry out its constitutional duty of protecting the territorial integrity of the country, and the RSP, which was created by Compaoré to secure his life.
It's always a problem when they do that. It happened to Kwame Nkrumah as well.
Yeah, that is what
Osagyefo own guard, General Bauer's command.
Yeah.
And it happened to J.J. Rawlings as well,
so
64 Infantry Battalion.
Yeah. So there's always that division. So they felt that now bringing Compaoré was a way of trying to marshal or regroup that unit that was dispersed across the country.
I see. So the fear was real and genuine.
Yeah, real and genuine. That was on the domestic side.
But that means Damiba was outnumbered in terms of the idea in his own cabinet.
Yeah, in terms of support.
He was outnumbered.
Yeah. So this was an attempt to strengthen his hand.
Oh, I see. But how will that strengthen his hand? If Blaise is coming, so that if somehow the transition produces Blaise as the next leader.
No.
Was that a plan?
Been able to use Blaise Compaoré to gather the support of the RSP, SY-RSP members that were dispersed across the country.
Yes, but Blaise is not in charge. He is.
He is in charge.
So how was he going to do that?
Blaise has always enjoyed the loyalty of that unit. And with the dissolution of the unit, they lost some of their privileges.
Yes, so bringing Blaise to the table, how is that going to put the unit together? Because the decision to put the unit together is the junta's decision. Blaise is not part of the junta.
He might not be able to impose what he called direct order to unify them. But knowing their loyalty to Blaise Compaoré, a mere statement of support by Blaise Compaoré could have.
Okay. So you don't think the transition was trying to reproduce Blaise as president? You don't think they've had that conversation? You don't think Côte d'Ivoire must have been interested in that? France must have been interested in that?
That is at the geopolitical angle.
Yes.
But what they're trying to do is that, having been sentenced to death, he feels threatened. But this is a way of trying to, if the dialogue had gone on.
So he also was fighting from a position of defense.
Yeah.
He was looking for a way in which the transition will water down that conviction.
That conviction, trying to restore his image.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense. Yeah, a very big quid pro quo.
Yeah,
but how difficult was that to cut that deal with the entire junta? It's not complicated.
You see, one thing about leaders is that the longer you stay, the more you step on people's toe.
Yeah, but if this is the deal that Blaise Compaoré wanted, that let's cut a deal with the junta, and I want you to water down this thing. So there's a quid pro quo. You tell them, okay, you also have to come publicly and admit regret for the murder of Thomas Sankara. Let's reinstate Sankara in his proper position and give him a state burial. That's a quid pro quo that the military could have asked for. And then he asked for this, we asked for that. And then we are bringing Burkina Faso together again.
That would have been easy had the junta itself been made up of just the RSP members.
No, you dissolve the RSP is a correct decision because you are trying to unite the country and you're trying to strengthen the military. So like we dissolved 64, as soon as Nkrumah was overthrown, the Osagyefo own guard was dissolved. So dissolve that. But Blaise Compaoré, he's led the country for 27 years. He's done some positive things. There's no doubt about that. He's put Burkina Faso on the map. They are exporters of tomatoes and all that. The agriculture is working.
Well, the credit of those things
can be taken by Sankara, no problem.
Because the land reform and everything.
Yes, but he was there, he implemented. He could have decided not to implement it. And he was close to Sankara, so you can say he borrowed some of the ideas from Sankara. Fair enough. But he's developed the country this way. Bagri Dam, tomato export, pepper export. Côte d'Ivoire, Burkina is doing well. Ghanaians sometimes don't understand why we import millions of of tomatoes from Burkina Faso. So yes, for that context, and to move the country forward, he's worried about his conviction. Really, you convict him for murder and you put him in jail forever. What does anybody get? The issue, though, is that we have to restore Sankara's place in Burkina Faso. And we have to restore Sankara's family in Burkina Faso. So you cut that deal. Okay, well, fair enough. You can become whatever. You have to publicly regret the murder of Sankara, if possible. Take responsibility for it. And announce a date for the funeral of Captain Thomas Sankara, a state burial where Burkina will recognize his work, and then we can live in there and then move forward as a country. Is that a difficult deal to cut?
Presumably, that would have succeeded more within the junta, but would never get public support. Because two things matter.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Why? The public are going to have a funeral of Sankara.
The gruesome murder of Sankara.
Doesn't matter.
It's difficult for a person to die. And for 27 years, for a shadow to be hunting you. It should tell you that...
I agree. I mean, if you kill somebody in those circumstances, it will continue to hunt you for a long time.
What Sankara meant to the Burkina base is not just his person. It's about his idea.
Yeah, what he represents.
And the sense of pride and purpose he gave.
So you give him... right now, Sankara has died, so there's very little you can do. But if you want to give Sankara a state funeral, rebury him with the highest honors of Burkina Faso, invite ECOWAS heads of state to come. As I was telling you when we were having a discussion before the program, unfortunately, all those people are dead. But you would have had Che Guevara there, you would have had Colonel Gaddafi, you would have had J.J. Rawlings, you would have had Fidel Castro. Raul Castro is still alive, isn't it?
Yeah, still alive.
Yeah, so you can have a Raul Castro there, and then you can pick up some of the big old socialist names. I guess even your Jacob Zuma or Cyril Ramaphosa would have been happy to join the Sankara funeral. So that will satisfy the people.
Well, presumably, but you see, the problem is that the call for justice in Burkina Faso is far louder than the call for mercy. The call for retribution outweighs the call for...
What do they want to retribute?
You see, he didn't just kill Sankara. He abused a lot of people. There was this human rights abuses under his watch. And one thing you see, what Sankara did, prior to the ascent of Sankara, Burkina Faso was used to supply cheap labor to Ivory Coast. It supplies cheap labor to Ivory Coast, and in return, France also benefits. But what Sankara did was that he sought to give them that sense of independence. But with the return of Blaise Compaoré, he took them back to the fold they refused. Even when he went on exile, he went to what do you call it, Ivory Coast. He was
That's where he is. He's still there.
Yeah, he was a self-imposed exile in Ivory Coast. Back to the same equation, Houphouët-Boigny-Mitterrand alliance that took Sankara out. So
yes, but those are his people.
So all the decisions happening today
are still anti-Sankara.
Anti-Sankara, and they don't call for any mercy.
I get your point. But I mean, maybe that carrot has not been stretched to them. That listen, we'll do what you want, but you need to admit that you killed Sankara.
Well, I also don't know the level of rapport between the S1 members of the RSP, the Presidential Security Regiment, and the larger army. There's this esprit de corps that's supposed to exist within the armed forces.
Yeah, you don't think they have it, eh?
But looking at the elite nature of this unit, they will have liked to be exceptional and exclusive. We can't just...
Well, in Ghana, the reintegration in 2001 did not take that long. Dr. Adokofo, who was defense minister, did an excellent job with it. Bringing 64 infantry battalion officers and men and putting them around the army was not complicated because they were an elite group, of course, and they were rangers. Most of the officers had trained in very specialized ways. So deploying them in the other unit helped the other unit to have those special skills within. Whether you are infantry, you are recce, or whatever you are, you have those 64, largely infantry and recce that they could join. And the airborne force, of course.
I think, in our case, we had orderly transition.
Yes.
But in their case, it was an uprising that took, what do you call it?
Blaise out.
Blaise Compaoré out.
And it's another internal coup that's taking this guy out.
This guy out. So there's not that.
So what's the future for this guy? Because if he doesn't have the support of France.
Another thing that tainted the reputation of the RSP was that even when Blaise Compaoré was overthrown and the interim government was established, they mounted a counter coup led by General Dindire. And then the larger army had to threaten them with march to the capital for them to relinquish power for the interim government to be reinstated. So they didn't show that kind of remorse or willingness to be accommodated or integrated into the system. So what do you call it? The dissolvement of the unit was orchestrated by two things: domestic pressure by the people in the larger army, and the threat, or what do you call it, the heavy-handedness of ECOWAS. So all the decisions they took.
So right now, where does this guy stand? Where does Traoré stand? I'm very concerned about where is his support coming from? Because you see, we also don't have Cold War right now. Yeah. So you're not going to get proxy support. America is thinking about itself.
Yeah.
So
you quite remember one of my submissions on the Ukrainian war. I highlighted the fact that with the war ongoing in Ukraine and the tension between Russia and the West, we could see a blowback in West Africa. Looking at the fact that we have Wagner Group in Libya and a divided government, looking at the fact that Wagner Group, Russia through Wagner Group was able to displace Mali, to displace France in Mali. You know, I said it was only a matter of time before we see the next phase. And likewise, Wagner Group was also used by Russia to displace France in Central African Republic. So we are now seeing a Rousseau.
Members of the Wagner Group, are they Russians?
They are Russians. They are ex-Russian military men. But what it does to Russia is that it gives Russia the benefit of plausible deniability. Whatever they do doesn't affect the Russian state.
So where is their base? Moscow.
Moscow. They don't even have an official website. It's just a.
But when they were in Libya, where were they based? In the Russian embassy?
They were based.
All over.
They were based in the east, fighting.
Do they have air power? They normally they won't.
Well, they go when they are in. They get official support of the Russian
Air Force,
military, and other side. Maybe through direct delivery from to a state they are working with.
So they are directed to go wherever by the Russian government?
By the, by their host country, the host government. But then,
okay, so they get into a country on the invitation of a government. So they are in Burkina. So that's what he was trying to invite them in, Damiba. So where are they now? Let's take the map again. Let's look at the map.
So the argument between Damiba and...
So Wagner Group is in Libya. Where is that?
Libya.
That's around here. So they are based in Libya.
In Libya, they are siding with Khalifa Haftar. That is the government in the east, Tobruk, against the government in the west, Tripoli.
Yes.
So by in Libya, they are
the government in the west, Tripoli, is the one that is backed by the UN.
That is recognized by the UN.
Okay.
Backed by Qatar.
But this Wagner, are they in Benghazi?
Yeah, they're in Benghazi.
Okay.
Backed by Turkey. That is the government.
So that will be Gaddafi people, those in Benghazi.
No. See, Gaddafi people have been silenced. So it's not a fight between the east and the west.
But you know, Saif Gaddafi is trying to run for elections. Yeah.
But that's quite a different issue. But historically, there's also been this historic divide between Cyrenaica and Tripolitania. That is the old map in Libya.
So that's the Kenedrisis people?
Yeah.
The Kenedrisis people who were overthrown by Gaddafi.
Yeah, they are from Cyrenaica.
So the people in Tripoli now are back to Kenedris. Is that what they are?
So, you know, they've always been this fear by the east of being dominated by the western part of Libya, because the western part of Libya has more population than the east. So in the monarchy days, Libya had a federal system of government for fair representation.
Yeah.
But what's happening now is that now the Easterners are afraid of domination by the West. That's what we are seeing the rift today. But then we have two hostile camps. In the West, you have Turkey and Qatar backing the UN recognized government.
Turkey and Qatar are backing the UN recognized government. Then the UN recognized government is fine.
But then in the East, you have alliance of France, Britain, US, Russia, Egypt backing Khalifa Haftar.
Oh, that's interesting. Against the UN recognized.
Against the UN recognized government.
And you think France and the UK are backing this one? You're sure about that?
Have
they issued public statements?
A lot of French weapons and the rights were discovered, and a whole lot of evidence came up. But then, once they are cooperating here, because they have mutual interests, in Mali, the interests diverge and they became hostile to each other. So what happened is that Wagner Group is now working in conjunction with the Malian junta, led by Assimi Goïta, to fight in the northern part of the country after the withdrawal of French forces. So what we are seeing is that Russia is transferring weapons to Wagner Group through the Malian state in terms of direct transfer to the Malian state. But the beneficiaries on the ground will definitely be the Wagner forces on the ground. But looking at the fact that it hasn't yielded much result, but has been able to hold the jihadists at bay to a certain extent. So there was this debate within the junta about whether to involve the Wagner Group or not. But then Damiba was against that decision. But he lost to the larger colleague who wanted the Wagner Group. That's why they issued...
To secure their territory against whom?
Against the Islamist militants who are in control of 40% of the territories now.
Already? But is Burkina Faso not largely Muslim?
It is largely Muslim. But
they don't like the Islamic governance?
We have a distinction between Sufi Islam and Salafist Islam to a certain extent. And then moreover, most of these jihadist doctrine is quite outside the acceptable doctrine of Islam. Because in Islam we have a distinction between the Meccan verses and the Medinan verses. So some of the verses they use are not verses that are applicable to the situation of today, but they try to justify it. So even despite the fact that they give Islam a sort of, they attack kind of make name and tag them with Islamists and the rest, they are a very fringe of the minority itself. So now that is on the, but then the security situation is that against all these divisions within the junta is equally the need to secure the country. So Traore and his guys, the current coup d'etat, felt that no, we need to probably get the Russians involved.
So Damiba is gone?
Damiba is gone.
Where is he gone to?
Per report, he's not in Togo. But you know,
Togo?
Yeah.
Not Côte d'Ivoire?
No. But you know, after the coup, this was the decision that was taken by the junta.
Okay, let's go through it.
The constitution was suspended, transition charter was dissolved, the government is dissolved, transition legislative assembly is dissolved, land and air borders were closed, the curfew was there, all political activities, as it happens in the normal coup d'etat.
All activities of civil society organizations are suspended.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
As it happens in the normal coup d'etat situation. But then, having mounted this counterattack and failing to secure power again, you know, he now negotiated an exit. And one of the conditions he gave, per report made by, there was this mediation team made of chiefs, religious authorities, and opinion leaders within the country to negotiate between here to avoid bloodshed. So he agreed to step down, allegedly, because he wanted to avoid loss of life and damage to property. But then, these are the conditions he requested or was given before he resigned. And one was that there should be a guarantee of security for his allies in the military.
Oh, that's the elite group.
That would definitely cover the remnant of the elite group. And the second, there was the assurance that a guarantee for his right and security. Assurance that those, and then there was this condition he gave, which states that the current guys, the Ibrahim Traore,
those taking power will respect the pledge he gave ECOWAS for restoration of democracy within 2 years.
Yes. You know, after the coup, there was this pressure, this negotiation between ECOWAS. But then I think this one is just a way of trying to hide face, because even when he was in power, despite restoring the constitution, he didn't restore the democratic.
But he was in a transition.
Yeah.
But interestingly, he didn't say anything about the transition. Or that's what he means by...
Yeah, that's what he means by...
Okay, the pledge he made to ECOWAS. I see.
And then, you know, one thing that made Sankara very popular during his time was that he was very frugal. You know, he sold he auctioned all the expensive Benzes that were used
by the previous government.
By the previous.
Sold it to individuals.
He auctioned it. I don't know whether to individuals but it was auctioned. And then he bought Renault 5, which was the cheapest car at the time in Ivory Coast for all public officials and members of government. And one of his justifications was, I said, you must choose either to have champagne for a few or safe drinking water for all. There was this sort of robust idea, these magnanimous ideas that made it very popular. And then back on the ground, you know, when we're dealing with the Malian case, I once said that we are seeing a rising, what do you call it, anti-French sentiment across these countries. And one of the countries with that rising anti-French sentiment is Burkina Faso. Because remember, there was this French convoy that was passing through Burkina Faso going to Mali that was stopped, attacked on the road. Yes, I think a year ago or so. And then during this current, what do you call it, when Damiba mounted a counter-attack and the rumor came out that it was being aided by the French, there was this attack on the French embassy. And then the jubilant crowd in the country could be seen waving the French.
So since this coup on Friday, have there been people on the streets in support of the coup?
Yeah, this is the images from the street.
I see, in spite of the curfew, or they do it within the curfew hours?
I think within the...
So in wrapping up, what is your gut feeling? What's going to happen? What is ECOWAS going to say?
Well, ECOWAS has condemned the coup.
Condemned the coup and asking for the return to the transition timetable.
Transition timetable as usual.
But that one, the Traore can do it. Traore can do the transition
But then
timetable.
the situation now is
What is he saying? He doesn't want a transition?
No, he has, I think in one of the speeches he made, he said he doesn't think the French can intervene directly into their own affairs anymore. Sort of trying to whip up the Sankara sentiment.
The anti-French sentiment. Anti-colonial sentiment.
One. He also said that he will be dealing with the Americans now.
That means what?
It could be a way of trying to ward off American pressure, to buy some time and see how the Americans will respond. It was like extending an olive branch to the Americans to see how they will respond to his regime. And then thirdly, he said he also think we could work with the Russians.
Oh, he said that?
Yeah, which is a clear indication that he might, at the moment,
bring in
the Wagner
group. Yeah.
But what I am waiting to see is that I don't know how a replacement of one European giant by another in an African country will augur well for the interest of the African country. Because one thing we must also understand is that whether France, Britain, or whoever is coming to Africa, They're not coming to Africa because they have love for the African people, because they have love for the African countries. They're only coming to benefit.
It's business.
So it depends on how you negotiate. Either you negotiate wrongly, you're exploited, or you also find a way of standing firm on the ground and get a quid pro quo. But then, would the Russians be more accommodative to Burkina Faso's interests than the French? We can't tell. Or would they be more exploitative? But if we can take cue from the days of the Soviet Union, of course, Russia today is not Soviet Union. We saw both magnanimity, we saw some sort of.
So you are thinking Russian engagement could be less exploitative than back to the colonial master, who has showed a history of being exploitative.
What I'm saying is that would the gamble to involve Russia in replacement of France actually go in the interest of Burkina Faso or not? That we can't tell.
If you ask me, I would say he should go with France.
But
because
then,
that's the devil, you know.
No. But then France is not. If it's up to me, if France has been there since colonial days and it has never done anything better, I think France should be the last person they should deal with.
But that's the devil, you know. They say the devil you know is better than the angel you don't know.
But you see, well, sometimes it's better to test the unknown devil than the angel, the unknown angel than the devil, you know. Because if anything for sure, why should Francophone countries pay for benefit of colonial rule? What is the benefit? One. Secondly, why should they save their money, about 50% of it, in French bank, only to be given loan and interest with their money? This is probably rascality or criminality. I don't know what to say. But I have.
You should tell that to Ofe Boigny.
I have. Ofe Boigny has always been a puppet. I never consider him a hero personally.
Okay. You should tell that also to Abdou Diouf of Senegal.
And then finally, I would like to end with one another inspiring quotation from Thomas Sankara.
What did he say?
He said, "We must learn to live the African way. It is the only way to live in freedom and dignity."
What is the African way? What did he mean by the African way?
You see, in this context, one thing Thomas Sankara sought to do is he's tried to use socialism as a blueprint, but he was trying to form that form of Pan-African consciousness.
Originality.
Yeah. There was this attempt to adopt the use of some, I think, there was this name they called the Atai, he even recommended, which is made from the traditional.
For who? Everyone?
Yeah, for everyone, civil servant, traditional Burkinabe, cotton and there. So he's trying to implement that sense of culture. But then when we say the African way, the problem with this kind of statement is also that which part of Africa are you talking about? Because even within Africa, we have different ethnicity.
So if you say African way, West Africa is different from African way, East Africa.
Even within West Africa, we have different tribes.
Keep an eye on Burkina Faso. That's Al-Hassan Bey. Very thorough analysis. Very good show. We've been talking about this for 40 minutes. The thing with our sessions with Bello is that those who like it completely like it, 5,000%. Those who don't like it, they don't like it at all. Those who like it, they like it very much. And that's the response we get all the time from our people. Do you have some text messages for us? Yeah, do I have a commercial break, floor manager? I don't have a commercial break. Okay, Bello, thank you. It's 2 minutes to the top of the hour at 11 o'clock. Now let's take the text messages and then we'll be wrapping up. This Good Evening Ghana is live.
Okay, from Kennedy, he says, "Wow, excellent analysis by Bello. Can't stop watching Good Evening Ghana. The best program in Ghana. Greetings to my brother Tanko Fatao in the Jubilee House." Anthony says, "Because of Bello, I can't stop watching Good Evening Ghana." And Emmanuel Mensah says, "I'm enjoying this. This is pure journalism. Well done, Paul and Bello."
Mahmoud says, "Bello is the man. I'm a Mozi man, and I think Bello gave a satisfactory explanation of the history of Burkina Faso."
Paul, you are very good. This is what we call book, not shouting on radio. And from Bright Latte, watching you live from Inquanta South. Good job. Coming from Eric Wisdom, Paul is an intellectual. And then Entry Kwejo also says, "Love you, Paul." From Osaberima, he says, "Paul, I'm watching you live from Panrono Estates." And then Alhaji Bob Sidi is also saying, "Good evening, Apostle Paul. I pray the Almighty Allah to strengthen and protect you from the wicked Paul. Assalamu alaikum. Peace, 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 peace." Greetings from Dumafo, Kabre, east of the Ashanti. And lastly, from Kobe Johnson, watching you live from London, my most treasured.
Right. Master Planner Jr. says, "Bello, one Ghana for your pocket. You do all." This is from, I don't see a name yet. He says, oh, okay, he says, belated happy birthday to me. Thank you very much. What has happened in Burkina is very unfortunate. Africa must rule in democracy, and coups are never an option. May God protect Burkina Faso. And that's all I have for now.
Okay, so that's what we have. On Thursday, we have a very big interview coming up on the show. You can't miss Thursday's show. Because I was asking our candidate for Thursday whether he wants a live or a recorded show. He said, no, he wants a live show. He has nothing to hide. He can answer every question. So he'll be here with us on Thursday. I won't tell you who it is, but you can't miss Thursday's show. It's going to be a very interesting one. On that note, trumpet and piano, please just finish with you. Let's finish with you. Thank you very much for watching. It's 11 o'clock, and this is the trumpet song. Yeah, there you go. Dance to it in your house, and remember that there's a God that works for you. Thanks for watching. Good night.
Metro TV, insightful and inspiring moments.
Has Christianity always been one of the religions in the world to you?
Oh, hallelujah. Christianity is not a religion, neither is it a joining of a church and doing the Christian things like praying and giving and so on. Hallelujah. Christianity is the